Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Alistair Chang, your chair of the Educator Excellence Committee. And for our committee meeting this afternoon, we've convened a panel focusing on teacher training and support. As you know, this committee has taken on first-year teachers as the focal point for our work this year. And we know that strong induction and mentoring programs don't just help new teachers survive that first year, but also help them thrive and stay in the profession. And uh, we'd love to start with a round of introductions with the panelists. And I think my ask is that we hone in, since our time is short, on the things that you would find to be most actionable, actually, for us to take away, right? And so some of our previous conversations, for example, have flagged for us that some of the training programs that we used to have in place, um, the funding has come and gone, and so sometimes they come and go, and we're they haven't necessarily been consistent in terms of the programs. And so I think one of the questions that's top of mind for us is what specific actual programs are most important for us to fight for and make sure we fund every year. And then, another example of something that's come up is differentiation of professional development for first year teachers relative to other teachers starting the school year, right? And as another example. So I bring those up as examples of this sort of layer of analysis that we're looking at right now, and would appreciate your help to make sense of what's working and how we should be thinking about this in DC at the stage that we're at. And so with that, I'll pass to Tiffany. You're at the top left of my screen. If you would share name, role, and some of the ways that you've been working in your context around these questions, that would be really helpful.
Sure. Well, thank you for having me. I'm Dr. Tiffany Green. I am at the Delaware Department of Education. My current role is on the Educator Excellence team, and I oversee educator induction for teachers and specialists. So our program is a statewide induction program for both teachers and specific specialist programs. I think to get started, the first thing you asked was about pretty much sustainability. So as I shared with Jen before, we'll be going into our second year of statewide implementation of the new program. We have recently shifted from what we call a mentoring program into a coaching program. Our program is a 4-year program. It consists of 2 years of coaching, so they're paired with the coach. And then after those 2 years, we have 2 years of professional learning. So I'm going to address 2 things, the sustainability and then kind of what you were talking about with professional learning and what the new teachers kind of should be focusing on, because we learned a couple of things as the years have gone by. But for sustainability, one of the things that was important to me is that we chose a framework that everyone could utilize, whether they were in elementary, middle, high, no matter what the content level was. So we actually partnered with the New Teacher Center and really adopted their framework and their model. The only thing I would say that's a bit different is they specifically catered it to Delaware because their program is very much set up on kind of a one-to-one model, whereas in Delaware, we use the cohort model. So our coaches are paired from between 1 to 4 teachers. And we did that purposely because we found that new teachers actually learn much better when they have others going through the same thing that they go through. And I think we're starting to see that everywhere. I mean, you have cohorts when you look at administrators, you have cohorts when you're, in schools these days with, master's and doctoral programs. So we found that that was a great way for new teachers to have somebody to feel like, hey, there's other people kind of going through the same thing that I am. In addition to that, we really tried to make sure that in this cohort model, we created a pipeline, I'd say, for our teachers, because teachers who accept this induction role are looked at as teacher leaders. So it's kind of a two-way street where we have teachers who don't necessarily want to come out of the classroom, but want something else to aspire to, they can be in these induction coach roles. And then you have our new teachers, and our program now applies to those that have less than 2 years of school experience. I don't want to talk the whole time, so I'll stop there on that part. And then on the second part, when you were talking about professional learning, again, it was very important for us to make sure that standards are at the forefront of what we were thinking. So in Delaware, we have adopted the professional learning standards that are put out by Learning Forward. And so when our educators participate in any professional learning, we ask that they align it to which standard from the professional learning standards they are trying to hit. And then also, or the other choice would be any of our Delaware teaching practices or our state, I'm sorry, I'm getting ready to say there, it's our evaluation program, but what we don't like to call it that, we call it our growth model. So really making sure educators understand the purpose of their own professional learning. They do have choice in what they're choosing for their professional learning. We do have a self-analysis they go through that really helps them hone in on where they're weak and they may be lacking some of their teaching practices or skills. And we try to get them to kind of focus their efforts there. But we wanted there to be some flexibility because we know that you get better results from anyone, especially educators, though, when it's something of interest and they can find value in it. And then once they can show that it's aligned to either one of those three areas that we just spoke about, we do have some reflection documents that they use, whether it's a series of questions where it really asks them, what did they get out of the professional learning? How are they utilizing it within the classroom? And have they seen any impact upon students? Another form that we use is if they do take professional learning in the summer prior to their induction year, we ask that they then use this professional learning template. It's a reflection template where, again, they reflect on what is it that you learned, and then how are you going to utilize it during the school year. So say they took something on differentiated teaching, then during the school year, we allowed them to reflect on that no more than 2 hours a month. That's how we get them to consistently make sure they're doing something ongoing and not just to say, oh, I finished all my hours in the summer, I don't have anything else to do. So I'll stop there. And then if you guys have additional questions, I'll be happy to answer those.
Just wrote a bunch of questions I'd love to follow up on, and I'm sure my colleagues do too. And it's very helpful to think about the frameworks you've been using as you move this into place. But Kathleen, would you do a similar intro for us, please?
Sure. Thank you for having me. Kathleen Paulson. I'm from the Arizona K-12 Center, which is part of Northern Arizona University. And we are a center that is part of the College of Education, but we support school districts statewide in Arizona. Our program is slightly different in that we don't have a statewide induction program. So districts across Arizona look to us for guidance and support when it comes to what induction should look like in their schools. So we take a very comprehensive approach to this work and following our retention data over the years and really trying to figure out how do we not only retain them, but sustain the teachers in the classroom. And so this comprehensive approach kind of starts with our Arizona New Teacher Support Program. And it is a grant program that districts apply to for a 2-year cycle. And with that, we provide funding, and typically districts use it to hire a full release mentor. And so it goes to partial salary or salary. And we bring them into this program. We have training and support through the new Teacher Center curriculum. We always go with that direction since it's research based. And then we provide some consistency. Those that join our program and some that come, even reach out to us for work, even though they're not part of this grant program. The benefits for them is that they see some consistency. And not only are we just filling a leaky bucket of retention, we're also looking at how do we help them and guide them into creating systems of support. So some of that, when we think about programs, part of our Arizona New Teacher Support Program, our districts are automatically into our network. We call it the Arizona New Teacher Induction Network. What we have found over the years is that we can continue to provide professional learning to beginning teachers, but without a system level of support, we will never see any return on that. Looking at Arizona data right now, the average number of years as an experienced teacher is 2. And so we know that those teachers are cycling out of those classrooms much faster than we can provide professional learning. So we start at the top. And so our network is designed in a way where we have district leadership a mentor, making sure that a decision maker is on the team, and they come together 3 times a year. Our Arizona Beginning Teacher Induction Standards is the foundation to that work. So we have a common set of standards that was adopted by our state board in 2021. And so all of our districts that join this network, we all rally around one standard and they set goals. And each time they come back, they bring artifacts to show that they've made progress towards these goals. And they have networking time to interact with other districts and get ideas, talk about next steps, and move forward with that. That network, I believe, has become one of our most successful points in Arizona when it comes to how do we provide consistency? How do we continue to look at issues and around teacher retention and continue to build on that and move forward? And so with that, we have that common training. We have the mentors are all training using new teachers tools. Districts are being not only being provided a network, but they are getting professional learning at the district level. So what we try to do is we have different topics. For a couple of years, when we had the ESSER funding in place and districts had a lot of money, we had to prepare them for that ESSER cliff. How do you communicate for sustainability to your board of directors when we start to think about how do we continue this work? And so teaching district leaders about data collection. How do you get this data? And then how do you story tell so that you can create a story around your data to communicate for that sustainability? Moving forward, last year, our network stuck with standard 10, which it focuses on beginning teacher professional learning and onboarding. And so really realizing for them that onboarding is not a 2-day event that happens in the summer, but you have teachers cycling through your system all year. So how do you continue to onboard them throughout the year? How do you continue to sustain them? What data are you collecting to make sure that we are continuing to push them forward? So I can pause there and hand it off to someone else if you want to move on.
Thank you. Randall.
Hi, everyone. I'm Randall Wilkerson. I'm the director of the new Teacher Development Program in Boston Public Schools. And for me, I'll enter by saying I just completed my first year in the role last week. And so,
Congratulations.
Thank you. So I'm in a position of learning alongside the leadership that I'm in. I know we all are. And I am still a bit new to the work. But when I think about sustainability in our program, from what I know of the program historically and where we stand today, I think what lends itself most to sustainability is policy. And so our Department of Elementary and Secondary Education from Massachusetts mandates that new teachers have access to an orientation at the beginning of the school year and that they engage in mentoring for their first year of teaching. And so this has been in place since 2006, and the program model and the funding has fluctuated over that time. But the program itself remains in existence because policy mandates that it remain in existence. So I think that has allowed the program to have a history at all, knowing that district funding does this over the years. And so what we've been focusing on in recent years is deepening into the areas of programming that are mandated by policy. So one of those is having the orientation at the beginning of the school year. That's what I'm in the weeds of planning right now. We call it New Educator Institute. It's a 3-day institute, bringing together our first year teachers and folks who are new to the districts. Maybe they're coming from another district in or outside of the state. And in the past, it has had kind of like some optional workshops that folks could tap into, meeting with HR and like more logistical elements of the role. But we expanded it from 2 to 3 days and expanded the content last year to give teachers 8.5 hours with the program directors of whatever content that they're teaching, so that they're having that face-to-face time with those department leads. They're having access to the curriculums that they'll teach, and they're also having the opportunity to be oriented to those materials before they get into the classroom, where historically a teacher may not meet a department lead for years after they start the role. And so really trying to foster a sense of community amongst our department leads and our new teachers and community amongst the new teachers themselves, because they end up meeting a cohort of other educators who are teaching in the same content and grade level before the school year begins, as well as also outfitting them with some of that broader district level information. And so, I say that to say it's an example of taking something that is mandated through policy and deepening the content and making it more relevant and tailor fit to our teachers, while also trying to have a shift in community. So really trying to get the bang for our buck there. Another policy that we have, the state mandates that our teachers engage in mentorship. But the standards there are very broad. For Boston Public Schools, it's been written into the BTU contract, another important piece of policy. I'm sorry, BTU is our Boston Teachers Union, that the folks who give that mentoring are called new teacher developers. They could be part-time new teacher developers who are current teachers who take on the role of mentorship as a teacher leader. So that'll be someone in the school building who can mentor a teacher throughout their year for a stipend. Or a full-time new teacher developer. Full-time NTDs are my team. Currently, they're at 6 of folks who have full release from the classroom for 5 years to mentor new teachers and support our new teacher development program as a whole. So in the BTU contract for our part-time NTD, something else that they wrote into that policy is that our part-time NTDs engage in professional learning throughout the year. So that gives us an opportunity, thank you, Fi, an opportunity to bring our part-time NTDs together to learn about what strong mentorship looks like, and for us to come together under one vision, mission, and body of work and align ourselves more deeply. And so really, over the past year, we've been trying to deepen that content for our part-time NTDs, because we know they're a big lever that we can pull when it comes to new teacher support. Unfortunately, right now there's not a policy beyond attending our new Educator Institute in the summer that new teachers directly participate in professional learning from the district. We don't have that policy. Therefore, we can offer professional learning opportunities to our new teachers, but there's nothing that mandates them to take it. So that professional learning with our part-time NTDs is really important, because they're a strong lever we can pull to access our new teachers and to make to have our NTDs understand what it is we want them to work on with our new teachers. And so that professional learning time becomes extremely important for those part-time NTDs. And so what you find with the part-time NTDs is that because they're school-based, and they are typically in the school of the new teacher, they might not be teaching the same content as the new teacher they're mentoring or the same grade level. You could have a 7th grade English teacher who's mentoring an 11th grade chemistry teacher, because a lot of our schools are 7 to 12, K to 6 and 7 to 12 now. And so what we tried last year that we'll be continuing moving forward is a PLC model that brings together the mentors who are teaching new teachers in the same content. So let me illustrate that for you. So that 7th grade English teacher would be in a cohort with all of the mentors who are mentoring high school science teachers, because that 7th grade ELA teacher probably doesn't know much about science. But if we put them in a professional learning community with all the folks that are mentoring science teachers, it increases the likeliness that somebody in that cohort is a science teacher. It increases the likeliness that folks with different levels of expertise at mentoring are working together, because we have many people who become NTDs for many years. So you might have a more experienced, more veteran part-time NTD with a less veteran NTD. And then it also allows them, again, to pool community resources, et cetera. And so throughout the year, they meet in these professional learning communities while also having some whole group professional learning that me and my team of 6 full-time NTDs impart upon them throughout the year. And so that has helped us to streamline and align content that our part-time NTDs learn and what we would like them to impart upon our new teachers. Again, being one of those big levers that we can pull because policy says we have to have part-time NTDs and they have to have professional learning in the role. And so I'll close to say what I found to maintain our system through lots of inclement weather. Like there have been times where we've had a full team of full-time NTDs and no part-time NTDs. There was a time the district had up to 12 full-time NTDs. There was a time we had no full-time NTDs at all, and we had nothing but part-time NTDs. But through policy, we were able to maintain the program at all and try to really invest in what the policy says we have to get to our new teachers and support them towards their own sustainability.
Super helpful and great to hear how you're thinking about this in your context. As I shared, I have a bunch of questions, but Dr. Henderson, Ben, any questions first?
Yeah, I'll jump in. Thanks, Representative Chang. Hello, everyone. My name is Ben Williams. I'm the current Vice President of DC's State Board of Education. I'm also nationally board certified social studies teacher and current social studies teacher in the District of Columbia Public Schools. So it's really interesting how we can kind of blend these systemic issues with like really integrating into everyday teacher practice. And one reason I'm very passionate about this work. So thank you all for being here today. I want to start with just like the policy piece and then kind of go through a couple different things because all of you said a lot, and I do have definitely want to make sure we're learning a lot from you today. So in terms of Ms. Wilkerson, you had talked about like starting with policy, right? And I want to kind of go through with each of you, Dr. Green and Ms. Paulson, one time, which policy, whether it be a district policy or a state policy, guides this work? Like, what are the actual requirements in your context? And is it with the state of Massachusetts or with Boston in particular, what degree of autonomy does Boston Public Schools have? But I'll start there. Like, what policies guide this teacher work, this teacher induction and mentoring work?
Sure, I can start us off. So the policy stating that we need to have an orientation before the start of the school year and that new teachers must engage in a mentorship program comes from DESE. So that's from the state level. Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Then based on that policy, the Boston Teachers Union was trying to kind of like figure out, well, how do we bring that to life in a way that's reasonable and equitable for our staff? So then they created a policy that's been consistently in the Boston Teachers Union contract over many years, stating what the parameters are to be a part-time new teacher developer, because those are teacher leaders, and what it means to be a full-time new teacher developer, because both of those are BTU jobs. And so BTU wrote in that how they're paid, like how they're compensated, what parameters of their job are, and then that they need professional learning for so many hours. So that's at the district level, though not the district itself, the union, and then the state level ensures that we have induction at all.
Thanks. Dr. Good, I saw you put the link here, but feel free to expand on that.
Sure. So I just provided the link to our actual code and reg here in Delaware. So that's where our policy lies. It's under the Educator mentoring and induction programs. You'll see that we still use the word mentoring, and we talk a lot about how sometimes that's used interchangeably, but we try to really focus on the word induction instead of just mentoring, because mentoring is inclusive of it. And then you'll see that sometimes you may still see the word mentor, but we've really slid to the word coach. But within our coaching, it is taught that sometimes you're going to need mentors. So, I mean, it's all there, and I know it's a lot to read, but I wanted you guys to actually see what it looks like. It's actually going to be updated just a little bit in the upcoming months, because we did decide that there's a certain amount of months that our coaches have to conduct their monthly meetings for them to actually count as getting the stipend, and also for the mentees to be marked as completing that year. So that was some of the terminology, and down towards the bottom, you'll see it's also for administrators, because we also have an administrator induction program as well. So this one reg oversees both of those. And then code is in our chapter 14, but you can find links to all of that there. But basically, the main thing I would say there is this was probably the most strategic move we needed to make, because I don't know about in the other states, but what's not in our reg or our code doesn't get done. And even sometimes when it is there, it still doesn't get done, but this gives us something to push back on. And then one of the other important things about our program is it is directly linked to the licensing. So when new teachers come to Delaware with that 4-year program, the initial license is 4 years. So for them to move to a continuing license, they have to successfully complete the mentoring program in full and be marked and documented within our deed system to show that they completed that. Otherwise, they're stuck. And what happens is when they go into their Deeds Educator dashboard, it'll say, unfortunately, we cannot upgrade your license at this point because you have failed to complete mentoring. And that's when the panic will set in and people will start to kind of, be like, what's happening? What's wrong? So we do allow them to extend their initial license up to 2 times. And then after that, we don't allow any others. So they really have to be diligent about making sure they are completing the mentoring program. Sometimes that can be a pro and a con. The pros are, again, it forces people to kind of do it. And so it gives us some leverage. But then the con is that sometimes licensing requirements don't match up to what we want in the mentoring program. So we get a little stuck there. We're really starting to work around that though. And I think we've kind of found a little bit of a sweet spot, a couple of kinks to work out. But again, if you can't do anything else, try to find areas where you can write something into, policy that says that this is mandated, or, you don't move to this license, or maybe your license is extended, because what people really want is to get vetted and get to that continuing license. And this is our way to make sure that they are receiving the coaching and support that we've worked so hard to develop for them. And that, for them to keep that license and be in front of kids, that we can say, yes, they went through this induction program.
Thank you. And do you know, just as a quick follow-up, whether that policy originated in the legislature or whether it originated in like the Delaware State Board of Education, or what the collaboration there looked like?
So that is the question. I'm not quite sure, because it was definitely around before I came to this role, and I've been in the role, it'll be 7 years in November. I want to say from what I can recall is that our induction program just started off as a pilot, and I don't think it was in policy, but I think that we actually had a couple of representatives that backed the mentoring and induction program and brought it up. And then that's how it became part of policy. I do know that now it is governed by our state board. As a matter of fact, I'm presenting on a 1st-year implementation to our state board on the 7th. So it does now go through our state board, which makes things a lot easier. And with Delaware being so small, it makes it easy for me where when I find things are going wrong or something kind of needs to be updated, that I can kind of just call our state board person and say, hey, we need to look at this. And I mean, we still have to go through channels, but it's a lot easier to get things updated that way.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Paulson, do you want to weigh in very briefly on that?
Sure. It is impressive to hear, Massachusetts, Delaware, the work that you've done. When we think about Arizona, there is no statewide induction program of any kind. Our center has provided recommendations and kind of done a breakdown of what that might look like for Arizona. It is difficult to get people to kind of move forward in that direction. Thinking about, former governors in Arizona and the work that they've done, Governor Napolitano, thinking about that governor and our master teacher program created the work we do here at the center, essentially. In 2018, former Governor Ducey created the Arizona Teachers Academy. That is something that's still in operation today. And so that policy guides our work in that it provides anyone who's interested in entering into education at our universities or community colleges, they can go tuition free if they commit to teaching in a school in Arizona for every year or partial year they took that scholarship. For us here in our office, we are able to contract mentors part-time mentors to enter into school systems that may not have an induction program, and they follow all of the guidelines we provide to all of the districts through training and support, and they provide on-site coaching to our beginning teachers. So that is a service that we provide 1 year post-graduation if they attend Northern Arizona University. So every one of our universities sort of handles that induction part differently, but those that graduate from our university have that 1 year of induction support completely free. Also professional learning for an entire year completely free. So a long way to go when it comes to policy, but there are some bright spots happening that are moving us in that direction.
Thank you. And yeah, Representative Chang, I know you're facilitating. Thank you so much. I have other questions, but I'm going to step back and let Dr. Henderson jump in, and then we'll see how the conversation unfolds.
Right.
Thank you. And I was interested in that question too about where the policy has originated. And I am persuaded by if it's not mandated at the state level, it won't happen and it won't be funded perpetually. And given that Arizona does not have a requirement, I'm wondering about what it is that prompts those districts that are applying for the grant. I think obviously it would make a difference that it's a grant and not something that they're having to fund themselves. So a related question being, where does that funding originally come from that funds the grants themselves? But I'm wondering, what is it that causes a district to say, hey, we really need to work on this, and to voluntarily say, like, this is an area we really need to focus on?
Sure. So when we think about just the funding in general, so for our office, we are a line item in our state budget. So we prioritize our induction and mentoring work since it comprises about 40% of the work that we do here in Arizona. For our districts, we have returned districts year after year. When we had more funding years ago, a few years ago, 2019, we were able to fund as many as 33 district programs in Arizona and even into our rural areas. We can scale up overnight in our program when we have the funding. We are as small as 6 district partners at some moments and up to those 33 and beyond. Our districts that are not grant funded still return to us for networking and technical assistance, consultation and support in many different ways. That maybe it's not an entire comprehensive support, but it is on demand in as needed basis. I would say it's the partnerships. We provide other areas of support to teachers across Arizona beyond induction. We also look at our teacher leadership, our teachers that want to lead from the classroom. That's still we consider that still part of retention support. Our national board program is strong in Arizona. We are the hub for National Board for Arizona, and we utilize our national board supports in many ways and in recruitment in that way. So I would say that it is the partnerships that we built. It is the trusting relationships. It is the technical assistance we can provide on site with our staff. And it is a constant adjustment with that ebb and flow of what do teachers currently need in the moment. And so we adjust to the demand of what is in the field.
How many districts are there in Arizona? So, like, what percentage are you?
So we have 200 plus public school districts in Arizona, about 700 charters. So we it can vary depending on where they pop up in Arizona. So it's
Okay.
right now it's limited because of funding.
Sure. And to all of you, what kind of evaluation results do you have to show the impact that you're making? I'm thinking, just to be straightforward, I'm thinking, like, if we're trying to sell this to, our policymakers, are there good outcomes that you're finding based on this investment that you've made in induction?
You want me to jump in?
Please.
So currently, of course, as I said, this is the first year that this new model is happening, but we are collecting information and data on the impact. So one of the things we did take a look at though prior to beginning the program this year is kind of where we are with retention overall in the state of Delaware. And what we saw from our old mentoring program is that our retention was pretty strong. I think we're at like 87% in the first year, around 77 or so in the second year. Then after that third year, it starts to really decline into the 60s, and then that fourth year is the 50s. And one of the things that I really equate that to was in those first 2 years, even in the old program, they did have mentors. They had mentors supporting them, kind of, providing everything for them, giving them, things to survive the school year. And then where you start to see that decline is in that when they get to that third year and they're on their own. And we haven't really worked on efficacy, which is another reason why we shifted our program. I'm a firm believer that as we increase teacher self-efficacy, that we increase retention. Because, I mean, think about it, we all experience this. When you're in a job where you feel like I'm drowning, I don't know what I'm doing, and it's just not getting any better, or you know that you're only surviving because the person next door to you is giving you everything you need, you're relying on that. And when that gets pulled and you still can't find your way, you want out. So what we're really working on is building that efficacy. So that's why we're focused so much on practices in the first couple of years, so that as teachers lose that support of that mentor and that cohort, that they're now equipped to continue to function on their own, because they've been taught that ever since they got into Delaware, into the teaching profession. Instead of just, and I always say the same thing, instead of surviving, we're really teaching them how to thrive.
Let me follow up on that for just a quick moment. So we heard you talk about the drop off from years 2 and 3. Does that mean that the Delaware's induction program is just 2 years?
It's 4. It is 4. But
Okay.
so remember this new model, though, the one that I'm speaking about today, we just went statewide this past year. So what I was saying is we don't have the data yet to show the effect of the new program. So the data that I just spoke on was from our old program, but similarly, we had mentors for those first 2 years. And then in the third and the fourth year, there were more of a self-analysis and then 1 year professional learning. So that's why I was saying when they had somebody supporting them in those first 2 years, we saw strong results. We were really retaining teachers, but then after that, it kind of just gradually decreases to where, we don't collect data over the 5-year mark, to where are those teachers still around? Did they leave the profession or not? But those are some of the things that we're trying to look at as we move forward.
Thanks. And along those lines, Ms. Wilkerson or Ms. Paulson, one of you also named some high degree of turnover after the second year. What was that data point as well in your context?
Well, we're looking at 2 years as the average number of years for experience in the classroom in Arizona right now.
Okay, that's what I had heard. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's across the state.
Across the state, yes.
So like so then 50% of the teachers have fewer than 2 years of experience.
Yeah, so when we look, it's pretty grim, but we're looking at, 52% of our positions are being filled by people who don't hold a traditional certificate. So we have those emergency certificates, substitutes, people coming from industry that are filling these positions. And then we look at 25% are completely unfilled. So we're at almost 80% in that combination there. So, as we get those 2 years, by the time we get to 2 years, it's too late to start thinking about retention. So that induction support, that layering of support with the district administrators, the school site administrators, beginning teachers, having people who can be on site in the classroom providing direct support is essential. If we wait to the point where they're in their second year, we've lost them already.
Yeah, thank you.
On this, I'm curious. I mean, of course, the ultimate outcome we're trying to measure is clear, right? But the intermediary outputs or intermediary measures that you're tracking and monitoring, I'm really curious how you've thought about that and what you are currently using to know if it's working, right? Before that 4-year mark, right? That for you, Tiffany, right? Which is a huge investment. right? And longer term. What are some of the intermediary markers?
So I developed a survey that they take beginning of the year, middle of the year, end of the year. And we have multiple layers within our program. So the survey questions, there was a couple of things I had in mind when we did the survey. One, never have it too long. So I think it's about 12 questions, 15 maybe tops. Second, we wanted to make sure that it hit all the roles that are within the program because we also wanted to look at patterns. So our survey goes to building principals. It goes to our induction coordinator who coordinates the program for their district or their charter. It goes to our lead induction coaches. So that's the person that leads in the building. And then our induction coaches who are who are paired with the mentees. And then it also goes to the mentees because you would think that this would be common knowledge, but a lot of people don't actually survey the mentees. They will ask everybody else, how's your mentoring program going? And things like that, but no one ever takes the time to talk to mentees. So that survey is taken in the beginning of the year before they receive any coaching. We take it again in the middle of the year, probably around January, when we know that we start to see teachers decline in that disillusionment phase. And then we take it at the end of the year. And what we look at, and that's some of the survey data I'll be presenting next week, is we kind of look at, okay, if all of the people across the induction work are taking this, do we see patterns where mentees are saying, this is really horrible, it's not working, but then maybe the coach is saying, yeah, this is where we're excelling. So that we need to take a further look at that and see like, well, what went wrong here? And sometimes that may mean actually talking to our mentees or going to those schools or that building to kind of ask a few more questions. So we do track it not only by LEA, but we can even dig down a little bit deeper into by building. So right now, that's the main source of data collection. And then our state does the educator mobility survey. So anyone who leaves our state, they get a survey, whether you leave your district or you leave completely. And it asks you all these questions about like, what caused you to leave? What could have been done to keep you there? And some of the things that are choices are everything from whether it was like the building principal or the building administration to, personal reasons. My husband got a job and we have to move because of that. So we kind of try to pair a little bit of both of those sets of data. And we're very fortunate that we do have data analysts on our team. So we're constantly collecting data in every method we can. And then our team actually does visits to the schools and we'll present their data to them. And we'll kind of say, let's look at where you are. And it's not we want you to feel bad, but sometimes just knowing is half the battle. And we always are very strategic about showing not only their data, but how it compares to the state, like statewide, so that they also can kind of see like, yeah, you're averaging right where the state is, or, there's huge disparity here. That helps us as a team here at the department as well to know where we maybe can offer some additional supports.
The discrepancy you're naming is interesting, right? Because as we've been also talking with teachers, with the last elementary school teacher I talked to get his feedback on some of the induction programs that he went through with DCPS was just a not a great experience, and his interpretation at least was because it was someone from a different grade teaching a different subject in a different neighborhood, but it could be a bunch of other things. And I think in overall, I think everyone that is on this committee right now is working towards thinking about how to formalize this, because in general we see it being really useful and being called upon as a policy shift. The intricacies and the details of how we do it well, I think we're still not sure exactly either how to measure or how to kind of think through the details of what we would need to put in place. And so in that vein, I think the two ways to take this, and we've got just a little bit of time left, and so also would love to create the opening that we could follow up with you asynchronously after this. But we're it's very interesting to think about how we formalize induction in a similar way to what you're doing in Delaware and in Massachusetts. What what are the areas where the formalization has actually not worked well, right? What kind of friction has it created, or when are you just kind of checking the box rather than actually doing something useful that we could avoid setting up in our system?
I'll jump in. So I would say one of the main things for us was because we had a program already in place, it's mindset. People find it very hard to go from what they've known for so long to shift to something new, even if it's better, because that's just what they were used to. So even if they know like this is a much better program, than the old program, I really just had to talk to, my mentee, and we could spend time just talking about how, crazy teaching is, and check, I met with my mentor, and so I fulfilled what I needed to do.
Right.
So really, so I'm saying that to say the advantage you will have is that people don't have that, because if you don't already have a formal system in place, you start from scratch. But then I would say, because you're starting from scratch, you're also going to run up against people who are like, but we've never done that. But we've never done that. So I will tell you, just from what I'm experiencing right now, no matter what you do and how good it is, you're going to hit bumps in the road. And the best thing that you can do is prepare people for that. Let them know that you're learning right along with them. Let them know that the first year is probably going to be really rocky, and that they probably won't see real results until year 3. So you prep them for that all the way along the way. And you share when you are, and you share when you are making mistakes, so that they understand that you're human as well. It's going to happen, because if you set people up for this, like, um, everything's going to be great if you just do this, and we've thought through everything for you, and then it fails, then you're going to have an even harder time getting them to trust and to do what you're asking them to do. So yes, you have to think through what you feel is best, but at the same time, you have to let them know that you're going to be right there along with them along the way, and that everyone's going to be learning. But that's why it's important to have some type of survey or something in place, because it shows them that you're taking the information that you're receiving from, your counterparts that are working with the program, and you're listening. But actually do that. Make sure you have some open-ended questions, because a lot of times we'll think that we have all the right questions on there, and then it'll be like one open-ended question that'll give you way more information than all the other questions that you have on there. And when you get opportunities, really talk to the people that the program benefits. If you never talk to the participants, you're never going to know. And then last thing, because I don't want to monopolize the whole time, is when you were saying that the mentee was saying that they had such a horrible experience, and they were kind of equating it to things that probably weren't really about the mentoring and induction program. That's the other thing. You have to make sure that the mentees understand what it is that they're supposed to be receiving, and what it is that the program is supposed to do for them. Because in the old program, any of my mentees who were in the old program, they remember that, oh, they just had a mentor, and most of the time it was somebody that was in their same grade level or their same content. Well, we've moved from that, and now our induction coaches have, like someone else was saying a little bit earlier, you may have a 7th grade teacher and you may have a 2nd grade teacher in your cohort, but because you're working on best teaching practices and you're aligning it to teaching practices, it doesn't matter if you're in 12th grade or if you're in 1st grade, because good teaching practices are good teaching practices, and you're able to gain perspective all the way up, from whether you're kindergarten all the way up through 12. So that's my best advice, is just making sure that that they understand what it is that they're supposed to be receiving from the program, and make sure you align your outcomes and your goals to what you're saying you want to come out of the program. Otherwise, you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot before you even get started.
Yep.
I would add to that, well, first, just reiterating, the importance of both quantitative and qualitative data. So always making space for that qualitative data. We also do a program evaluation survey at benchmarks throughout the year, from our mentees and from our mentors, and that having that open-ended those open-ended questions are essential? Or is there anything else you would like me to know even? And where the hope is this year to grow to focus groups so that we're also having an opportunity for conversation to learn from participants in our program. But in addition to that, just naming that, these induction programs sit in a really broad context, the context of what's happening in whatever specific school the mentee and mentor are at, and the district at large, the city at large, the state, and the circle grows out. And so coalition building is essential because the mentee mentor relationship doesn't happen in a vacuum. So what we found in our program evaluation surveys was when we asked teachers, would you return to your school? Or if you're not, like, what's impacting your decision? A lot of the feedback we got was the school environment that they were working in, which is kind of out of the control of this induction program in particular. And so an important part of this work is impressing upon the communities that we're a part of that early career teaching is its own unique experience that requires its own unique support. And we need to be in coalition with one another to support that teacher through that early career phase. A difficulty right now in our district for me in this role is just that. Right now, I don't have permission to email principals directly. We have an all leader institute that opens up our school year, and I can't be one of those people speaking because, again, when you're in this huge context, BPS has 125 schools, over 50,000 students. Yeah. Who's where on the chopping block, and who's above, what priority is the highest? And induction right now isn't super high. Now, of course, this is central to my work. It's a passion of mine, so I can explain why it's essential work. But then you could have easily 50 other people come in and make just the same claim for the programs and work that they do. And so a challenge that I find is really aligning with school leaders on the importance of mentorship for our new teachers and how they can be a support to both the mentee and the mentor. Because when we have those part-time NTDs, I can't hire them. For 125 schools, like last year alone, we had 200 part-time NTDs and about 250 new teachers. So not only could I probably physically not hire all those people in the window that we need them to be hired, but also because they're working in their school building, the school leader chooses. And so that school leader ends up having a lot of power, but there's not avenues for coalition building between them. Like, I can knock on their door and try to, come in with my leaflets and, do you have 20 minutes to sit down with me? But that's a long game. But again, at that state level or at that district level, if you can build in those avenues for that coalition work, it can really strengthen the program, because I can only do so much to ensure that our program is really safe and protected when I can't build strong coalition with others in the district who hold those important levers. So just remembering the program doesn't exist in a vacuum, and we have to build coalition across the district.
Super helpful. Kathleen, and anything to add there? And then, I think all of us have other questions. Would you mind if we follow up over email with anything else with you and your teams? Great, thank you.
The one thing I would add, so we have we always do the surveys. We always have, and we want to know what is the satisfaction in the role for that teacher when they go through the mentoring program. But beyond that, we are working with a third-party evaluator for our program. So WestEd has moved into doing a quasi-experimental study to find out the achievement rates of the students that are working with a teacher who is mentored through our program in comparison to those that are not. I think we consistently get these survey data results that are self-reported about 89% of those teachers are satisfied, fully satisfied in their role. They have, a 94% satisfaction rate with the experience of an instructional mentor. And while we know that that is wonderful to hear that self-reporting, ultimately, we want to get to student achievement. Does it make an impact on students? And so at this point, our experiment will be completed in December. And what we're hoping to find is, how do we adjust our programming based on the results that we get? And so an offering to you is to also think about that. So beyond the surveys that you're doing some self-reporting,
Yep.
what could a third-party evaluator possibly offer and
Yeah.
extend to you?
Great. Thank you so much. I think excited to dig into some of these ideas and questions with internally here in DC, and then would appreciate if we could come back to you. But fantastic work that you're doing in your contexts. Thank you for sharing your experiences with us. It's really appreciated.
All right, I put all the things in the in the comments that were in my mind in the
Thank
last
you.
second. But thank you so much for having me. Please do follow up, and I would also love to follow up with Kathleen and Tiffany with you as well. I feel like I've
Great.
learned a lot from the both of you also.
Yes,
Thank you so much. And Representative Williams and Henderson, would you stay on for a second, please?
Got it.
Yeah, let
Thank
me
you.
say thank you to our guests as well. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for putting this together, Jen. I know I was saying that I would cut it off at 45, but it was very good. So I would love to take just a few minutes, and I would still love to get us out by 5, to review where we are and the homework that we need to do. But I can't help but think that actually now at the end of this, but let me think this through and digest it, that we push for induction standards. Why do we not have centralized induction standards?
I mean, we've
Well,
already called for it, right? And Robert, you can
Yeah.
trip in on that.
Yeah, I'm thinking we wouldn't have the standards if we don't have any expectation for a statewide induction implementation. So like to me, I would think those things would go hand in hand, right? Like
I mean, there is the option of I mean, I think we called for it with a resolution, but we didn't actually work on moving it. You know what I mean? Right? The actual work of
yeah,
this is the top priority. Let's make this happen, right? And that
right.
follow-up we've never done, right?
So I think there's maybe it's too much to say there's a fork in the road, whether we or how do we decide whether we go to Aussie and say, are you open to developing this, or do we go to council and say,
Right.
we think this is really
It's
important, or both, so
right. So I think my ask to the two of you is where for our next conversation, I would or async, it was, how important do you think it is to have it? Because if you think it is very important, then I think we think through how do we make it happen. But
Yeah.
if you think that there's something else that we've learned that is what we should push for instead, like not a policy but a program, right? Or right, then I think we go for something else that but I do want to make sure that we're doing something actionable all the way through this year rather
Yeah.
than right, like just put another resolution out that and without following up.
Yeah, no, I think I mean, I definitely think that we have the previous resolution. We can think about, and I think this is a board growth area, right? Where like just because we pass something doesn't mean something gets done. We have to continue to keep the conversation going. We have to advocate. We have to
Yeah.
engage. It has to be repetitive. It has to be continuous. It has to be, and I think honestly, like, Robert and Fraser and I talked about this in the last iteration of this committee. Like we knew that without fully engaging the WTU and DCPS, like it was going to be hard to get the council to do that for this iteration of the budget. So I think like
Of course.
we're still in a place of like reconfiguring for when it can actually gain teeth in the system. But I think that like those conversations like need to happen. But I think we need to clarify the what first. Like some of the things that I heard here, certainly induction standards. I heard I heard certain and we don't need to get all the specifics. Like, I don't think it's our job to design the program, right? But I do think we could recommend some best practices from what we're hearing from other states. And one of the things that I think falls squarely in our purview is what we heard from both Delaware and Massachusetts today around linking it to licensure, which I think is critical. And
It's
that's
tough
all.
because charters don't have licensure, right? So
Yeah,
it would only be for
and
DCPS.
even as a charter school teacher, like, charters still care about licensure. Like, and or there needs to be more accountability, period. So like hearing her say like the piece around getting data from exit surveys, when we've been pushing for exit surveys for 4 years, was deeply troubling to me too, because it's like there's so many pieces of this puzzle that we know what needs to happen. We just lack the political will of the executive and legislative branch in DC.
Right.
So I think that those things
Okay.
there, but like I
Yeah.
had to renew my certification. Like, Capital City wasn't going to give me a job if I didn't have a license. Were they hiring some people with exceptions who didn't have licenses? Yes. But I think it's a misnomer to say that licensing doesn't matter in the charter industry.
Yeah, but I think a distinction that matters between that it's yes, it's valued, but if it's not mandated, like that's a difference that matters. Like, in order for something to be like truly like universal and to have the impact we want it, I think it does matter that it's not a requirement, a mandated requirement, even if it is important in most, to most LEAs.
I agree. I just don't think it should be. I'm just saying it's yeah. There's a level of nuance here that we're splitting hairs, but I don't want to get into the weeds on that.
So okay, let's digest the panel. Jen, would you send out the most recent kind of timetable for the committee? I don't think we have time to discuss it right now, but what I would appreciate, Robert and Ben, is if you could take a look and provide any async feedback on what Jen and I kind of reconfigured for the plan for where we go from here, and what's in the works. And then I think my ask would be to answer that question that you're flagging on the what. What do you want it to be, right? Because I think we're getting a bunch of ideas now, and I think I would love your take on what is the most important next step, actually, right? To actually, if the goal is for us to be supporting first year teachers in the context that we're in, and I say that is right, like the full context that we're in, what should we do? What can we actually do as a city to support them best, realistically, given the budget as you're naming, Ben? Would love your take on that, right? And maybe
Yeah.
it's not fighting for, implementation of policy, but something else.
Your question is what's next and what should we fight for?
Yeah, because I think we've done a pretty good job of getting a lay of the land, right? The missing piece that I told Jen, I think we still would love to have a separate panel on, is what is happening in DC for first year teachers. So
Yeah, I mean,
um,
yeah, and I've been a part of the new educator orientation planning committee briefly,
yep.
and experienced it myself last year, and it was alarmingly inadequate. So, but I think that that still is something we should do, and we should just figure out how to best document that so that we can use it in our advocacy.
And Taylor reminded me, thank you, Taylor, for all the amazing work as well. The WTU did have some sort of language around induction in the new contract, but she's going to pull that for you all and send it around as well.
Yeah, so I did take the last year's resolution as being a like, yes, we think this is important. But I completely hear you on like that is not the end of it. we need to do more to actuate something in this direction if we think it's that important. And I completely agree. We don't want this to end with just another resolution. So I hear you, and I appreciate the like kind of filling in the like what we want, what we would want it to look like. But I also hear you on like maybe taking a step back, because there are other things that over the years we have named as important in the teacher retention area that we have just, it's not that I don't think they're important, it's just that we have kind of never succeeded in the universal exit survey.
Right.
I still think that's important, and I think that's a fairly small lift, honestly, compared to what we're talking about. So I will also kind of like
Thank you.
step back and reevaluate, like, of all the things that we have talked about over the years, where I would put this. But my at the moment, I think I would put it pretty high, but I think it's also worth, looking around and saying, how successful has induction policy been elsewhere?
Right.
In that
And
context.
that's the other thing, right? Like just adding bureaucracy doesn't necessarily help, right? If then we're scaling out and formalizing programs that teachers don't actually find useful and just add a bunch of work. So
Yeah, because there are lots of variables at play. Obviously, it's not just
Right.
a lack of support, but can first year early career support make the difference?
Right.
I mean,
Great. Thank you guys. Yeah. Yep.
Those are all important questions we can come back to. So yeah.
We don't have a committee meeting until when, Jen? It's some time, right? So
it's not on the calendar yet, but typically you all meet like this last week of the month, every month.
okay. So
And Jen, do you
end of
and
August.
Taylor have these links? Like you're good with that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have everything, and that was put in the chat. I'll include those in the follow-up too, though.
So I'd appreciate if we could have some async back and forth on this to kind of get ready for our end of August meeting. So yeah, I'll send some emails and might give you guys a call separately.
One quick question. Taylor's been doing a lot of work. What's the timeline on like her sharing that with us? Like, is it ready, or is it I'm not trying to add pressure. I'm just interested to see,
Yeah, she has she wrote a memo that should be in your inbox. But let me know if
Oh.
if the attachment wasn't there or something.
Sorry.
Possible. But yes, so she and I have had conversations with several leaders, including the three panelists. And so some of the takeaways are in there, along with a little bit of the DC context. And then she produced some recommendations as well. But you can add what else you would like to add, Taylor.
Oh, I see it now. I'm very sorry.
But yes, please do review it. I think it's a good complement to everything that was said this afternoon as well. And if there are specific pieces that you would like more, I know obviously looking more into the DC piece, but anything that's listed, anything in the footnotes, let us know.
Thank you. Thank you, Taylor.
Yeah, thanks, Taylor. Sorry I missed that.
No, you're fine. Thank you.
All right. Sounds like that's the close of the committee meeting.
That is the close of the committee meeting, Jen. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to end the recording now. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody.